we're really glad to have you all join us today for yet another of our bi-weekly webinar series that we have at Pragmatic TechSoft. And these sessions are something that we really look forward to, because this is not just about, sharing insights. It's also a space where we have real conversations about how business processes tend to break down. And our aim is to bridge these gaps with smart, sustainable solutions. So today's topic is basically touching about, how ERP projects, they usually start with a very fancy promise, but there is a big struggle in delivering real results and, getting everybody to really implement it the correct way. So we'll be unpacking what really happens. More importantly, how you can, stay far away from, those kind of issues that you really, fall into, and you have a right approach, to implementing ERP perfectly. And I can assure you, this is definitely going to be a thought-provoking session, something that's going to be really practical. And leading us through this is someone who's seen these challenges up and close. He's solved them from time and again. Yashas, he's our senior functional consultant and a seasoned business analyst. He's worked hands-on with lots of organizations across industries, and he has helped them implement Odoo, but also do it in a way that really aligns with, the way the employees work in the organization, with the processes that those businesses follow, and with the main long-term goals that that particular business has. So he brings a lot of practical wisdom, and I know that you will definitely find his perspective very relatable and very valuable. So thank you once again for being here, and this session is going to be really insightful. So Yashas, over to you.
Thank you, Arva. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes, great. Thank you. So, very good evening, everyone. Today's topic, as Arva rightly mentioned, is basically about what could be the possible reasons that an ERP implementation can derail or can fail, and also how something called as change management can improvise along with strong project management tools. So that is what we are going to look at. So before we start, what I would suggest is let's look into a couple of key parameters, that is couple of statistics, how and what is happening around the world, and how important is something called as change management, and how important is something called as a project management tool, just the tool itself. So one of the very important statistics that we got from Forbes is 75% of ERP projects fail to meet the objectives. That is, certain times the whole project implementation itself fails. In certain times, yes, we implement it, but then has it really given me the ROI that the company was looking at? For example, if we put ourselves into the shoes of the organizations where they're implementing the tool, a new tool, it could be any business tool, it could be SAP, it could be Microsoft, it could be Oracle, it could be Odoo, or it could be anything. It could be Sage, it could be Zoho, Salesforce, could be any of the ERP tools. But are we once we do this, have we really achieved the objective that we were actually planned, which we wanted to do? But the reality says 75% of the ERP projects fail to do this. And then 64% of the projects executed all across the globe failed, basically exceeded the budget, and 30% of them could not meet the actual timelines. That is, they exceeded the timelines which were initially planned. Also, the most important challenge which everybody feels across all the implementations, at least 70% of them feels that the biggest barrier in an ERP implementation is the employee resistance, or the user resistance is what we call. We put out these things from various sources, and we strongly say that ignoring these realities will definitely put our project implementation at risk if we do not work out what are the possible causes, irrespective of the product. Because when I say product, it's the actual tool that we are hopping into. That is, as an organization, I'm going into a new ERP tool. More than the tool, is our method right? Is our timing right? Have we put out the right tool? Have we decided about the right tool? Have we decided about the right partner? Or if we are implementing in-house, are we doing it in the right way? All these things matters. In fact, the tool becomes the last part. So that's what we are going to learn from today's webinar. So a couple of more reasons why good ERP projects go bad. Few more statistics. Few of the examples is basically in 2018, one of the global cosmetics manufacturer, they wanted to upgrade to SAP, but then their underpreparedness made sure they lost almost 64 million in orders of stock. They could not even start one of the flagship manufacturing plant that they had planned, and because of which you can see the after effects, 6.9% of their stock went down. It's huge. 64 million worth of a plant was not able to start, and because of the whole wrong plannings or the wrong steps that one of us, basically we took in the middle of our implementation. Another example is basically one of the leading confectionery brand in 1999. They wanted to put out a big bang rollout. Basically, they wanted to take 3 systems, that is 3 ERP tools for their one organization, and they planned it within 30 months. But then because of the data migration constraints and the testing did not go well, they lost the whole Halloween orders, that is the seasonal orders. Usually across the globe, there are different geographies, and based on that, there are different festivals, and there are different seasons where the business will be skyrocketing. And if we miss this opportunity, it's a huge loss to the company. So with wrong planning or other things going down, this particular company in 1999 lost almost 100 million of orders because the implementation did not happen right. Another one is the European discount grocer again back into 2018, where they took a ERP tool, but they started doing over customizations apart from what was already available in standard, just to tailor fit the tool according to their business process. But then they reached a point of no return in such a way that they literally moved back to the old legacy system. So if at all we do not see these things, that is the feasibility study, if we do not do the feasibility study between what tool am I hopping into, and does this satisfy all our needs, at least most of the needs, and if we simply fall for the product, or if we simply fall for one or the other reason, and then we take up the implementation, invest all our money, and then we find that okay, it is not feasible. And look at these things. The spent money was $600 million in 2018 by one single company. So that's so huge of how these ERP implementations will take place, and the repercussions are heavy. And the last example over here, which you want to cite, is basically the iconic athletic footwear back in 2000, where they put out, they were like very, they wanted to achieve this whole implementation with small timelines, because of which they rushed the demand planning engine, and unfortunately they failed, so that the whole inventory fell apart. That is basically they could not plan the inventory properly in place, and because of which their whole supply chain got hit. The whole implementation was not effective or not even successful. And the effects you can see: $100 million supply chain hit and a 20% of the overall share hit. Because of wrong planning, someone wanted to achieve very quickly. They wanted to show the success of the implementation, but then did they actually get the ROI? Nope. So the sources are also, we have mentioned over here, from where we got these actual insights. But what does it tell? It's not just about the technology. It's about the people and the process that are most important for any ERP implementation. We'll later tell you why it is. The least actually bothersome is the actual tool that we are looking into. It is actually our internal processes, our internal people, who are more responsible for a successful ERP implementation. Now, we looked into all these things. Let us see what could be the common pitfalls. That is, why an ERP implementation goes for a toss. Why is it not? Why it won't be successful? One of the most important thing is the disengaged leadership. That is, yes, we have the leadership in an organization, but each one of them have their own visions, and which is not aligned with one ERP implementation, because an ERP implementation is in such a way that it encompasses the whole organization. That is, the whole workflow of an organization should stand aligned in one direction, and it should make sure with all integrated aspects. That is, we could have multiple departments, and any manufacturing entity, for example, or trading entity, for example, will have the purchase, pre-sales, the after sales, the inventory, the manufacturing, the finance, the HR, and all these departments. And if everyone does not work together, put together their dependencies on each other on a proper processed way, in a proper chart, in a proper flows, and understand each one of their dependencies, how each things move from one team to another team, finally achieving the end goal or the vision of the organization. The vision of the organization would definitely be scaling up the business, scaling up the market, achieving more profits, bringing more visibility, bringing more transparency in the whole process. If each and every team does not align itself, each and every leader who is responsible for this is not engaged, then the ERP implementation is definitely bound to fail. And then the poor process alignment, as I clearly mentioned, each and everyone have to put out their processes with departments. Then they have to combine all these things, put up one web saying that this is my common goal. This is the ultimate goal of the organization. The whole process is webbed. Each and everybody have a dependency, but then they work independently in such a way that their work together brings the end results. And this has to be mapped into an ERP tool. Is this process gonna be achieved in the ERP tool? Have I chosen the right ERP tool to achieve all these aspects? And most importantly, yes, now that, let us imagine, yes, the management is engaged and then we have the right processes. But with the new tool and the new partner, we can opt for, I mean, let us imagine that we are choosing a partner to implement this because we don't have the right resources or the right time and this thing efforts. So in such scenarios, have we chosen the right partner? Is this partner have given the right training to my individual users? Because end of the day, with any ERP tool, the most important thing is management is not going to do the transactions. It's the end users, that's the last users who are going to be in the office, who are going to be in the shop floor, who are going to be in the sales, who are going to be in the field service outside. They are going to do the transactions. An accountant is going to do a transaction. It's not the it's not the CFO or the CEO who is going to do the transactions in a ERP tool. They are going to drive the process. They are going to visualize the whole process. They are going to look into all the data and then they are going to decide. But it's the key users. But if these users are not trained right, then the whole ERP again is bound to fail. And finally, the rush timelines. With all these implementation, now that yes, I have chosen a tool, my team is aligned, but then because of some constraint, my management wants to rush the timelines. Ideally, it should have taken 6 months to 9 months of implementation, but the given timelines is only 3 months. Definitely things will fall. Somewhere we would have settled for less quality of work, or like without going for a training, without going for a full-fledged process flow, we would have put out the whole ERP tool, and then nobody knows what to do after that. So that's when it's going to fail. So all these are major reasons which we feel are the common pitfalls for any ERP implementation failure. So this is where we feel that there is something called as a change management, and when it is made effective, that will act as an insurance policy for this whole implementation. Now, what is this change management? Change management is something like it's a structured approach for making sure the transactions or the whole implementations go smooth. What is this? Structured support. Like for example, this is like a systematic approach. The change management is nothing but we put out a systematic approach, a scientific approach, most importantly, a logical approach, which makes sure right from the planning, from the alignment of the teams, from the choosing of right tool, from choosing of a right partner, and then putting out the budget, then implementing the whole tool, then looking into the even support, post go live support, everything has to be put out in a very logical manner. So that, and also if possible, we have a tool itself to ensure all these things are tracked within the system. So that, are we following the right approach, are we following the right timelines, how are we going to track it? So the systematic approach is what we call as the change management. How important is this, and how is it going to affect us? Basically, if at all we follow a right implementation methodology, and if we follow the right change management, it will protect our ERP investment. That is, everywhere we are going to put out a check and balance. We are going to have checks and balances. Are we choosing the right ERP partner? Are we choosing the right ERP tool? Are we following all the processes? How did we know that this particular tool is going to map my business? How well did I do the that is parallel run? For example, if I have an existing tool which I do not want and I want to get into a new tool, yes, the implementation is going on, but have I seen 1 month of data in both the systems for comparing the actual data? That is, yes, I can now peacefully go with another ERP tool without having any hiccups. All my reports are coming in the new ERP tool as well, with all departments. That we do something called as parallel run. We opt for, once all the implementation is done, before going live, we actually take some time and do parallel runs. But is this being done? How well is the post go live support? How much time are we investing for go live? What are the preparedness for go live? So all these things is part of the ERP change management. And then it also ensures the user adoption and minimizes disruption. That is, again, following step-by-step process. Did we do the management review first? And then once the development is all done, did we do the this thing, user training, that is key end user training? Did we take a sign off from each and every user saying that these are all the supposed transactions that a particular user has to do? They're able to do it. They're able to have the access rights. They're able to generate all the reports. Then did we take the management sign off with all these things? All reports, statutory, non-statutory, everything is under, I mean, we are able to achieve within the ERP tool. Have we crossed the budget? Where are the timelines? So all these things make sure the user adoption is high. And most importantly, it maximizes your return on investment, because everybody knows getting into a new ERP or implementing a new ERP tool itself is a huge investment with respect to money, time, and effort. It takes definitely money, and also it definitely takes additional effort from individual employees, from the end users to the management, so that they have to put additional time, they have to dedicate their resources along with their regular office work or the factory work or any respective job. So it is everything put together, it's a huge investment. But once the ERP is implemented, did we get what we wanted? Are we able to reduce the manual efforts? Are we able to get better visibility? Are we able to get better transparency? Are we able to scale up our businesses? Make sure our processes from manual are now automated. So if we do not visualize, or if we do not validate these particular changes, or if we do not validate these particular requirements from the before and after, there'll be no pointing in implementing the whole ERP. So, and this structural ERP change management will help us maximize this return on investment. So, as I said, no matter how advanced the ERP is, no matter how advanced the ERP tool is, how very well good the ERP tool is, the complete implementation success hinges on the people's adoption. Because if the key user or the user says that I'm not able to do this transaction, or I do not know how to do this transaction, I do not know how to generate this report after the implementation is done, then there is no point in the whole time we spent for implementing this whole project. So let's look into details of this this thing. So what are the strategies that we can take up with respect to change management? The first one would be having a clear strategy for the whole implementation. That is, what has to be done. Now, yes, there are two aspects. One is few organizations, they are not at all aware about what is an ERP tool, or how it can work, or how it can bring the changes. They getting into an ERP tool is one scenario. Second one is an organization which is already in an ERP tool. They want to move out of this legacy to a new one. Could be as small as a simple upgradation. When I say upgradation, it could be like a version upgradation, or also could be a complete migration from one ERP tool to another ERP tool. But if we do not outline the complete changes, what changes do we need from these ERP implementation? Could be a new one, or it could be a migration or upgradation. Why is it actually needed, and what are the expected outcomes? I'm going to spend this much of time, this much of money, and all my efforts. End of the day, what am I going to achieve? Where are we? What is the actual output that we are looking at after 6 months of implementation, after 3 months of implementation, or after 1 year or 18 months of implementation? Where do we want to stand? What is the end goal? If we do not have these things clear, then there is no, basically, then there is no point of even getting into a new project, wasting all our efforts and time and money. The next most important thing is securing leadership buying. That is, most importantly, with each and every process, because we are implementing an ERP tool which is going to encompass complete business processes, it is very much required to make sure we identify leaders of each process or each department, get them into confidence, give them responsibility, align them to make sure they define the processes, and then it comes to management for a final review, so that each and every one, especially the leaders, key leaders, or we call it as key users in each and every department or in each and every process, they will take the responsibility, and they will make sure their end users will follow the same, so that there comes an accountability, there comes responsibility, so that they know the actual process which is happening. They also know how much is being able to capture in the present ERP, or how much they want in the new ERP. So they'll be able to tell what is actually required, which will increase their efficiency, which will increase the throughput of the whole team. That is when the management will get to know, okay, this is what I actually need in the new ERP tool or the upcoming ERP tool. Then comes an early and very clear communication. This is most important, because it is not with one team and with only few people that we are going to work with one ERP migration or one ERP implementation. It's going to be, again, a whole organization. What is required? How is it required? What are the key features that we are looking at? All these things have to be put up in a very clear communication channel, because the most clear the communications between individual teams and what is required, what are the bottlenecks that we might be, what are our busy times, so that what is the best time to go for an ERP implementation. All these things, if it is not clearly communicated, later during the implementation, it becomes a bottleneck issues. And also, most importantly, is the training. As I said, the changes, most importantly, the decisions for an ERP implementation is definitely going to be in the hands of the management. But the whole ERP tool is going to be adopted by the last of the users, that is the end users. So unless they are very clearly trained in doing the transactions, the managers, if they are not trained of generating reports, if the higher ups who are not trained for taking up, analyzing dashboards or analyzing data and analyzing the things and coming up with solutions, if this training is not given, then definitely any good ERP tool with any number of implementation time will fail, because end of the day, we are not ready to make decisions out of the data that is given to us. So that makes that becomes a huge bottleneck. So making sure having the right training is also very, very important. And most importantly, as I said, measuring and monitoring and reinforcing, where we gather continuous feedback with the users, with the managers, with the management, and then we continuously improve. It could be with new features of the ERP product, or when we wanted to make some customizations or adapting ourselves into the new ERP processes suggested by the tool. So this is also very, very important. Rather than going for complete customizations of our own, what if our processes can be aligned to the ERP tool itself? So we measure the progress. We say that, okay, yes, we are able to achieve the purchase. For example, if I have a purchase order purchase process which is taking up 4 steps, but my ERP tool is suggesting 3, which can omit one of the manual steps. And if that is actually good, there is no harm in adopting that. And then we gather feedback of it. Is it giving me, is it taking less time? Is it reducing my efforts? And then we can adopt to it so that we continuously improve. It's not that ERP tool has to fit into our business. It can also be the other way around. We can also fit into the ERP tool. That is, we can align our processes, our goals, our metrics into the ERP tool, so that we both work hand in hand. So as I said, structured frameworks increase ERP success by 60%, and that's what Gartner says. With all the data collected. So yes, we saw what is change management, and then we saw all these aspects. But then there can also be mistakes even in this change management as well. The most common and classic management mistakes are these. One is not having a clear project vision and goals, causing confusion. That is, each one of them. Like, for example, I want an implementation to happen. My purchase department head says one, and my sales department head says another one. For example, one of the basically the department head says we want the make to order process, but the other one is not ready to accept the make to order process. They want to push the make to stock process. If these kind of things, if these kind of aspects are not aligned, someone says I need an integration with another tool, another department head says no, we can do it manually as well. So if there are confusions, if there are unclear goals of what needs to be done in a project, definitely it's gonna fail the whole ERP implementation. Then most importantly, weak or absent leadership engagement. As I mentioned earlier as well, it's not just the management who is going to take the call on how an ERP implementation should take place. It is the individual department heads or the key users or the key process owners. They have to take the leadership, and they have to involve completely from choosing the tool. That is because they have to tell clearly the management that yes, I believe our processes looks aligned in this tool. I have seen a couple of aspects. We have tested a couple of processes. We have seen the feasibility. We have seen the number of reports that this ERP tool provides for my department. So this feels 60% or 70% fit standard in the standard methodology itself. We might require certain customizations, but yes, this is a good tool. If this confidence, if this commitment is not given by individual key users, management end of the day can simply get into an ERP and enforce the ERP on employees, and this will not give 100% results. And as I said, poor communication with respect to strategy leading to misinformation. What needs to be done, what is the end goal, has to be clearly told from the management to the end user. So if that is not clearly told, why are we bringing new tool? Why are we changing from Excel to something else, MS Excel to any ERP tool, or from one ERP tool to another ERP tool? If that is not conveyed, the end goal will not be even understood by the key users or the end users. And then most importantly, ignoring valuable employee feedback. That is, for example, we have put out some HR processes. We are trying to implement this in the new ERP tool, and unfortunately, it doesn't meet the statutory requirements, which the HR head informs. And if management doesn't see this as a bottleneck, then the whole ERP implementation fails, because for them, the rest of the departments work, but then the HR department is not even fitting into the ERP tool at all. So then they have to omit the whole process, or they have chosen the wrong tool for the wrong department. So making sure, as I said, taking the collective decision and getting the feedback also ensures the success of an ERP implementation. Then the most important part is the training, which I've been highlighting time and again. That if could be with respect to performing a transaction, reading a report, and making informed decisions. If the training is not given of how to use it, when to use it, what to use, then the whole ERP tool is definitely bound to fail. And then skipping the readiness assessments. This is one of the key important aspect, because it's not just about the tool, it's not just about the people. Is my organization at this moment ready to accept the change? Are we making some new are we in the process of changing some other business decisions where I'm not able to, or my team will get very high workload and they'll not be able to get into the things? And also, when we are making live, is this the right time to make the system live? Can we wait for another 1 month, or should I have been done earlier, because my books has to be closed, my system audits has to happen, so all these things. So analyzing the readiness of the whole team, of the whole organization, also matters a lot when we are getting into the new tool. And then comes after implementation. If I say that the post implementation support seems to be very expensive, I'm going to cut off and I'm going to manage on my own. And then the users, because it was a very fresh implementation, users have 100 numbers of queries, they're not able to manage things in the new ERP tool, then the organization has nobody else to approach into. Or even if you go to a new vendor, they literally have to study the whole process once again, come back, and they'll have to understand the tool, the methods the earlier implementer has done, and then they have to adapt. Or the previous implementer himself would have moved all his resources to the new project, and he is not available now. So these are some of the mistakes which can cost very huge. So each of these mistakes, as I said, has very measurable impacts on project costs and timelines. And overall, it's easy to blame a ERP tool, but we don't look into what are the mistakes that we did as a team, as an organization, and as an implementation team. So let's see what are all the other ways where we can avoid these mistakes. One of the most important aspect which I mentioned was the employee resistance. Let's see how are we gonna this thing, and what are the reasons for resistance. One is the fear of change. That is, most importantly, there is a new tool coming up. Am I given much workload? What should I do new? Because, for example, this is very commonly seen in our natural life. For example, I do not know how to swim, or if I do not know how to cycle, or if I do not know how to drive a car. That seems like a huge Herculean task for us, until someone teaches us, gives us some confidence, and then they are gonna like, yes, this is how you do it, and then we practice. So the initial fear, exactly for the regular things that we do, is also applicable when we use the ERP. Yes, I know to do the purchase transactions. Yes, I know to do the manufacturing transactions in my already existing behavior, in my already existing tool. But when a new tool is thrown to me, and when management asks, okay, from next week onwards, we are going to give you a new tool as well, you have to practice this. Are we ready? What questions? There are so many things that I was doing outside the books. Will those be available in the ERP tool? How do I generate the reports? I was doing one process in one particular method. Is this readily available over there? So these many questions and these many doubts will make a particular employee with less confidence. They'll have, that's when slowly they'll start getting into a resistance mode, where they'll say, no, I'll do it tomorrow, or I seem this particular tool is not working, or there is this feature not available, that feature not available. So these are a couple of reasons. How do we overcome this? One is, most importantly, if we can involve the end users very early in choosing even the right tool. Especially key users will take up the part in taking up the right tool, but end users, if we can show them before, very well ahead, even before we choose the tool, that this is something which we are looking at, these are the options that are available. Your transactions and reports can be modeled in the new tool in this way. And then highlight what are the quick successes, that is, what are the positive features. If adopting to the new tool will give them more, basically reduce their time, reduce their this thing, that is manual work. Highlighting all these things will definitely boost their confidence. And then most importantly, giving them very clear learning modules, that is, basically it could be user manuals, it could be step by step this thing, giving them more time to practice, make mistakes and learn. So all these things will reduce the user resistance. And most importantly, as a quick this thing as well, we can also put out in such a way that the users who adopt very well, who are performing very well, can also be rewarded, so that their morale will be boosted, so that they take up more responsibility, more ownership with respect to adopting into the new ERP tool. So these are one of the couple of these are couple of solutions which can reduce the that is basically resistance, employee resistance, especially during adopting a new ERP tool. As I mentioned earlier as well, addressing this resistance very early increases adoption rates by more than 80%. That's huge. That is, if the end user is happy, my whole implementation is going to go in a different way altogether, because they are going to take up responsibility. They are going to pitch in the features. They are going to pitch in the data into the system, and we are going to get better results. Moving further, we'll also see what are the strategies that can prove very well ahead, even before we get into the this thing, actual implementation. Just a moment. Sorry. So, what we usually suggest, or what we propose, is before getting into a ERP tool, do a business study. That is, an organization as a let let them know our business. Let them see our that is main key areas, that is functional areas we are looking at, functional modules that we want to implement, and then we explain. As an organization, I approach 3 to 4 vendors and I tell them, this is my whole organization, this is my business. I am having 200 to 500 employees, or 100 employees, or 50 employees. These are all a couple of departments. These are all my pain point present process. I don't even have an ERP tool. And also, I want consulting. That is, certain times in certain organizations, what happens, we are very clear, that is, as an organization, we know that these are all the steps we exactly do, and we are already evaluated by other organizations where they are following the process. We just need a change of tool, because this tool is complex, this tool is very expensive, maintenance is so and so, it's not available as a web application or something like that, so we want a new tool. So in these scenarios, we don't want consultation, we only want implementations. That is, get a tool, train us, and then give us all the details that we want, and then you guys can leave. On the other hand, there are other aspects where we have the process, but we are not sure whether it's the industry best practices. So we ask for consulting. In that case, we are ready to change our processes also, along with adopting into a new ERP tool. In such scenarios, when we approach the vendors, we first see how well they understand our process, and the tool that we are looking at, does it fit at least 60 to 70% in the standard functionality? That is, without customizations, does most of my process fit over there? Does it require too much of customizations? So that is something called as the business study. This can be done with as I said, it's a business for everyone at the end of the day. So we can have a minimal amount agreed, or remunerations agreed between both the parties, that is the organization and the ERP implementer. And then we can engage their time and effort, and we can say that, okay, provide us a POC. We'll allocate this much amount of time and this much amount of money. Let's do a POC, and if it works out, then we'll take up into the new one. Then we'll take up the entire ERP implementation. So that is when we say it as it could be integrations, it could be how well we can generate the invoices, or how realistically we can see the data, how well we can automate the whole processes. That is what we call as the rapid proof of concept. It need not be 100%, as I said. At least 50 to 60% should fit our business processes should fit in the standard ERP tool. And finally, we can make sure with this ERP tool, with the budget, now that I have seen the POC, now that I have seen that only 70% of the product is, of my processes are available in the standard, other 30% have to get customized. Now we shall make sure checking with all my individual department heads, key users, end users, is this the right tool? How easy it is to do a transaction? How easy it is for us to integrate with another tool? How easy are we gonna get the reports? Does my statutory requirements at least fit into the standard ERP tool itself? That is when we make the right decision, and then we invest in the whole implementation. Rather than go into the implementation, we discover somewhere halfway through that this is not the right tool for me. This method, what we find is, this approach will actually reduce the failures, will actually give us very good time to analyze the implementer team as well, and their capabilities and the tool itself, and also the overall the budget and everything. So as I said, benefits, it confirms the standard coverage, de-risks the custom work, and let you evaluate the partner before signing. These are one of the key important aspects. As I said, a couple of other strategies that we look at is define and communicate a clear vision. This is from the company's perspective. What all needs to be done? Very clearly put out goals. What needs to be done with this particular implementation? Who are going to be the value drivers, and what is going to be the success metrics from day one? Rather than going into halfway and then changing the target altogether. That is, yes, I wanted to achieve this, but now let's concentrate on something else. If we do not complete the first implementation, that is the initial agreed target or initial agreed agenda, then moving on to the other one doesn't make any sense. And that is one of the most important thing. Almost all implementers will complain as something called as scope creep. That is, in between the implementation, the owner of the business says that I want to achieve this. You had agreed everything is available in your ERP tool, go ahead and do it, get me this done within the same timeline. These are some things which will derail the whole implementation. And most importantly, as I said, milestone budgeting and tracking. For each and every process or each and every step of the implementation, have we defined the timeline? Have we defined the budget? Have we defined the resources? And each of them, we believe, should be taken up as smaller sprints, and we have to achieve in a weekly basis. Which we are going to say, how are we going to do this using Odoo as an ERP tool in the later slides. But as I said, if it can be done, that will be great. And most importantly, leadership to be taken up as individual process champions and not just bystanders. That is, basically, they're not going to say, yes, it is done. Yes, it is, it was achieved. Rather, they have to get into that. For example, if I am the department head, rather than just looking into, depending on my key users' words, I will have to get into the system, look into how a masters are created, how well it is structured, how well my user able to do a transaction, how well the access rights are returned. How well the reports are getting generated, how well my automation of the entire process is, so that I take the ownership of the whole process along with the ERP tool, so that we say that, yes, this is a tool which will fit right into my process. This is what we say as the leadership as champions. And then, as I said, targeted and role-based training, saying that, yes, each and every user have to perform these many. For example, during the training period, I cannot neglect the key users or the end users. We have to clearly tell them, now you know the process, you already know the internal process, you have been trained to use this particular ERP tool. Now we will make sure that for next 15 days, you will have to do at least 10 transactions in a day. Whatever you are doing in the other ERP tool or in the Excel or any other manual work, please do it in the ERP tool. Make sure it is a target. That is, every day they have to achieve it, so that by the end of a week, you observe the whole transactions, different types of transactions. One, for example, as a purchase department, I have to do purchase orders of goods, purchase orders of services, purchase orders of assets, and even other aspects for both imports and also domestic, so that I get to see all the transactions in a week. If I do not get this particular thing, or if I do not cover all these transactions in a target-based training, then we might omit certain transactions in my training at all, and then when we go live, we might be very surprised. So because of this, if we achieve target-based training as well, role-based training, what has to be done by a HR executive, what has to be done by the HR manager, what has to be done by an accountant, what has to be done by a strategist. So each one of this, if we put out role-based training, that's going to improvise a lot. That's going to help the whole implementation a lot. And most importantly, KPI driven monitoring. As I said, what should be the adoption metrics? That is, you have to do these transactions, these many transactions has to be done, and most importantly, how well it is how well these are completed. It could be taking up the training completion and how well the user logs and everything has been put out. And then post go live support and adjustments. We have to make sure as an organization how many number of months we are going to have the post go live support. If a new employee joins in, are we going to get trained internally, or are we going to get them trained by the implementer himself? But at least we propose a 90-day of post support, where every day at least they look into each and every aspect and check if there is anything missing, or if any user is struggling, and so in such a way that 3 months down the line, the implementer is going to work hand in hand with the internal team, so that the whole go live process is seamless. As I said, the pro tip is tie milestone payments to delivery and adoption, not just configuration. That is most importantly, it's not just when we achieve a milestone. It's not just, when the moment I complete the configuration and I say that as an implementer, yes, I've completed the initial configuration, here is the configuration database, please provide me the milestone amount as well. So rather than that, how well the team has adopted, how well the team is able to do the transactions, that is what marks the actual success. So a well-structured roadmap with active ownership is your best protection against ERP project drift. So basically, if at all we have a right strategy, and if at all we have put out these steps in an ERP tool, for implementation itself, we can have an ERP tool, and which will clearly say that this is the timeline, this is the resource, these are the targets that we have to meet, and we track it every day wise or a small sprints in every week, and then we say that yes, each and every step is achieved. That is what is going to mark the whole ERP implementation as success. And what are those things which we have to prevent so that our ERP implementation doesn't fail? One is, most importantly, the governance first. That is, we have to have something called as a steering committee. What is the steering committee? This is like the key heads of the department along with the management, including a project manager and also the very technical person internally, and also from the implementer. This is going to be a high level team which will not consider any end users, but it will be mainly the key users or even above that. They will say what are the goals of the project. They will define what are the outcomes of the project. They will define all the aspects with respect to timelines, budget, resources, and outcomes. Sure. So as I said, continuing further, I'm sorry for the inconveniences caused. So continuing further, as I said, this steering committee will decide how well the ERP implementation goes in, taking into consideration from both ends. That is, from the implementer along with the organization. Then comes the iterative delivery. It's not like we are going to plan for a big bang approach. Rather, even if it's a big bang, we can break it into smaller sprints of every 1 week or 2 to 3 weeks at least, so that we clearly say, we define the results we define the agendas for the sprint, and we put out that into action, and we achieve the sprint, and then we are going to say, this is what we planned, this is what we achieved, let's get on to the next sprint. So we achieve the results smaller chunks, which will finally end up in the larger result at the end of the day. And then comes the data discipline. One of the most important aspect for any new ERP implementation is the misalignment of data. That is, we have so much of data which the internal team is also not ready to adapt. When I say ready to adapt, it could be cleansing the data, removing the duplicates and other things, which will definitely be one of the most important aspects for an implementer to adopt into a new ERP. Because they're very horrible, the data, the very horrible the implementation also. So it's going to be like, we always say this during implementation, being a project manager, garbage in, garbage out. So if at all we are ready to take up that ownership, and we're going to invest time into cleansing this historical data, legacy data, we are going to have a very good implementation further down the line as well. Then comes, again, I've been stressing this out time and again, it's people and change, where it is role-based training, the micro level learning, and basically rewarding the adoptions will definitely boost the confidence, so that it doesn't it will make sure the whole ERP implementations are a success. And then, most importantly, what are the key aspects? That is, what are the key KPIs that I want to achieve? If these are not tracked, and if these are not initially defined, then we are going to do the implementation, but we are going to not achieve anything. It's just going to be the transactions and the reports. What is my actual ROI from this ERP implementation is something that we need to define, and we need to track it. So these are all a couple of most important aspects. Failing this will definitely derail our whole ERP implementations. Now we are going to see, with all these aspects, we saw the change management, we saw how and what can derail the whole projects. Now we are going to say how Odoo can help us. with respect to this project management. But again, we are going to highlight this in double quotes, because even with Odoo ERP tool, it can only be implemented thoroughly and it's going to yield some results if it is implemented with discipline. Without discipline, without a clear strategy, any tool in the, on top of the world will definitely make sure, if there is no strategy and if there is no very clear planning, irrespective of the tool, the project implementation will fail. There is no doubt in that. So as I said, why Odoo and how Odoo can help us? Odoo's project management tool. I'm speaking about Odoo from a project management aspect. What we have is basically we have the planning module also, and in the Odoo project app. So we are going to clearly say that, okay, this is how I'm planning the whole project. These are all the number of tasks, subtasks. These are all the people who is going to work. This is the budget for it. This is how I'm going to allocate the resources. I want to do a analysis of basically the profitability analysis, the expense analysis. All that is possible with respect to the Odoo project app. So that is one thing which Odoo has, and that will enable us to make sure all the steps needs to be followed for the project management are captured within Odoo. And then basically, as I said, the reports and real-time accountability. We can clearly define, even before taking up the projects, the timelines, the who is going to be the responsible people, and what are the things that we are going to achieve, what is the budget, what is the timelines, and everything, timesheets, everything can be put out in the as the reports. And then role-based onboarding using Odoo e-learning module. Odoo has the e-learning module where we can put out all the documents in place, all the necessary tools that are required for a particular employee to get trained with. All those can be put out within Odoo itself. And that also means that it is part of a micro learning for faster user comfort. That is field wise. That is, if you want to simulate something, we can put out videos over there. We can, in fact, with Odoo itself as the ERP tool, they can practice within Odoo itself. All those can be done. And then to collect the feedback, that is basically to collect valuable feedback from the users, we have the survey module which we can use, where with individual departments, with individual key users, or with individual users, the surveys can be put out. How effective is the whole training? How effective is the whole implementation is going on? What needs to be changed? Is the reports coming up? Is the transactions coming up rightly? All these things can be captured for decision making within Odoo itself. And then comes, as I said, there is also the help desk and support, which can also be used for ticketing purposes for the implementation team, so that the internal team raises that queries that we are not able to do something, or we are not able to learn something, we are not able to transact something, we are not able to view a report or access rights or anything, which can be solved within the help desk itself. Help desk module of Odoo. So as I said, time and again, I'm saying, even with all these in place, without actual and very effective leadership, the tool can fail. That's one of the most important thing which we are highlighting time and again. And we are going to answer that question, why Odoo makes the ERP change. That is how Odoo as an implementation tool and Odoo as an ERP tool, how does it make the changes easy, is basically in Odoo, almost, as you are already aware, or I'll put it up, Odoo is an ERP tool which has almost all the business processes integrated into itself. That is, it has all the business modules. That is, if you can start from pre-sales to sales, hiring to firing, procure to pay, order to cash. Then comes, the additional modules of project management, the product lifecycle management. Then there is quality. Then there is maintenance. Then there is repairs. Then we have subscriptions. Then we have rentals. So including point of sales to restaurant, it has everything. One integrated ERP tool for all the business processes. What does this mean? This will encompasses almost all business requirements of any organization, so that we don't have to go for multiple ERP tools for multiple processes. That is one of the key important aspects. And then, as I said, with Odoo ERP, it's easier, and also we can do something called as a modular implementation. Rather than a big bang approach, I can combine supply chain as one strategy, and I can implement first, then I can take up the HR. I can integrate the HR later. I can implement the help desk and support later. I can implement the pre-sales later. So all these things, I can implement the repair and the field service later. I can implement the fleet module later. So based on this, we can have a modular approach rather than everything to be implemented at once. And then comes, as I said, one of the key aspects of Odoo is it's customizable. That is, it's open source tool where in-house team of good knowledgeable resources can do the implementation, or even the implementer can do customized workflows to suit the requirements. And as I said, the integrated communication tools, that is Odoo itself. Odoo has the communication tools with Google Cloud, or with respect to Gmail or Microsoft tools, or it has even this thing with respect to other ERP tools as well. That is, Odoo can be integrated with Oracle, Microsoft, or SAP, or Tally ERP, or any other Salesforce, any other ERP tool as well. Internally also, it has its own tools. That is, it can be integrated with WhatsApp, it can be integrated with Facebook, and all these aspects, so that it has internal communication as well as external communications as well. And most importantly, it provides all the analytics. That is, it can also be integrated with business intelligence tools as well. Also, it has internal tools. That is, it has its own spreadsheet modules, it has its own reporting metrics, which will give you very real-time insights. So Odoo's design is optimized to simplify this change management. Whatever we are planning about the change management, how it has to be done for implementing a project, all those things are available within Odoo. As I said, how even Odoo can fail is basically if at all there is a stakeholder mismanagement. That is, if at all we take late stage additions or unclear ownership, which can, as I said, which I earlier also mentioned, something called as scope creep. Even with Odoo, even with the right change management, the project can fail because there are scope creeps happening within the ERP implementation, or there is end users who are absent, or the key users who are not taking responsibility, because of which the whole implementation is siloed with departments, and then the resistance grows. And then there is process audits which are skipped. That is, internal processes which are not ready to be audited, which are not ready to be looked after or looked into once again for changes, can also defeat the whole process and the project. And finally, as I said, the if at all the KPIs are measured because of the configurations or something, and if the final objective is missed out, the ROI, that is the return on investment, the final objective of the project, that is, these are all the key objectives that I need to achieve. And if it's only looked into as an ERP implementation, rather than looking into what is the process that we wanted to achieve, how much percentage of automation that we were supposed to achieve, how much percentage of manual reduction that we were supposed to achieve, how much percentage of faster business processes that we were supposed to achieve, if these are not defined and measured, then definitely yes, there is no point in implementing any ERP tool. So that is when we say it has to be a hand in hand, this thing with respect to change management and disciplined execution with an ERP tool. It's, as I said, we are going to mention it time and again, tools don't fail, but people, planning and execution does. So most importantly, we are going to key in this factor where it's not just the ERP tool that's going to drive the success of an ERP implementation or the company. It is also about how are we going to implement this, who are going to implement it, and what are the strategies that we take to implement a particular ERP tool. So that's where the whole solution hangs in. So this is what was all about the change management. And as I said, what are the mistakes that finally we are going to look into? What are the mistakes that we can avoid? Ending the end user support prematurely. That is one, as I said, soon after the implementation is done, I'm going to do on my own, and we are going to take it on our own. That is something. Ignoring valuable user feedback. That is, the management along with the implementer, if they ignore the feedback from the key users, that is also going to make sure the users are not able to, that grows the resistance. The users are not able to put out a report or put out a transaction, and if this is not addressed, the whole implementation is going to derail. And then documentation, that's one of the most important things, because how are we going to configure, how are we going to do a transaction, how are we going to complete one complete process from order to cash, or procure to pay, or hire to fire, or put out a new appraisal, or do a new manufacturing. If I don't document this in ERP tool or using ERP tool, adoption for new users or everyone will become very, very difficult. And neglecting to refresh training materials, as I said, when new users comes up or new processes comes up, we have to reframe all these things, reframe or redo all these training materials. And most importantly, the data cleanliness is one of the most important aspects, because right implementation, or one of the fastest implementation, can happen if the data is correct. And data is clean. That is one of the most important things which I always mention. So success doesn't stop at implementation. In fact, sustainability is very, very crucial. That doesn't, just because I made live doesn't mean that it's successful. How well we did achieve the ROI, how well we are able to carry this forward, how well we are able to have this same product for next 5 years, achieving the automation, achieving the faster responsiveness, and achieving the faster decision making things is what defines the success of an implementation. So that is what we come from. Our background come from 17 years of Odoo experience. We do a lot of we have done a lot of implementations, and we have more than, as I said, in 50 plus countries we have put out our implementations and our customers, and that's what we do. We consult, we provide the consulting services also to organizations with Odoo as well. Odoo is our main product, and also we do the project implementation strategies as well. So if you have any questions with respect to how to implement or what to implement, you can reach out to us. Thank you everyone for listening. That's from my end for today. I'll meet you again for the next webinar, guys.